What is up, world? It's your boy Ton, and you are listening to the Wonton Wealth Podcast. Here, I'm going to unravel anything and everything commercial real estate related. And more importantly, we're going to add abundant value. So if you're ready, buckle up your eardrums. All right. Well, Joseph, thank you for joining me. For the audience today, could you give us a brief background on who you are, what you're doing now, and how that relates to commercial real estate?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it. My name is Joseph Gozlan. I am the broker with Eureka Business Group. We are a commercial real estate brokerage in the Dallas-Fort Worth market. What makes us a little bit special is we are vertically integrated. So we have our commercial real estate brokerage. Our main specialty is retail, and we can circle back to that one a little bit later. We also have a commercial property management. And in the management side of things, we'll manage all commercial real estate. I tell everybody we'll manage anything people don't sleep in. And that is unfortunately a lesson we learned the hard way. We used to manage apartments and we no longer do that. And then the third vertical for us is acquisitions. We're also an investor. We used to syndicate. We no longer syndicate right now, but we used to. And we invest ourselves directly in commercial real estate. We do JVs. So that's kind of like our full gamut of what we do today.
So you're essentially, or it sounds like you're kind of a boutique firm. You do pretty much everything with an investment arm. Is that correct?
Yes, correctly.
So how did you, when you started out in commercial real estate, what did that look like? Did you start out in property management or did you start out as a broker? And how did you grow it up to where it is today?
Yeah, so we actually started more on the investment side of things. So my previous career, before I became a broker full time, is software. I used to be a software engineer and developer and a manager, and I was even an architect, software architect with great GameStop and other larger corporations. But I've always had a passion for investing in real estate. So I've been in license since 2009. And then somewhere around 2015, I kind of had this little crisis, if you want to call it, right? Where I have a lot of little properties that have a lot of different things going on, like a fence and an AC and this and that. And it was $45,000 expenses in like 6 months. It was just not scalable, right? So I looked around and it was 2015. The thing that made the most sense for me at that point was to graduate to commercial. And we started in multifamily. We kind of refinanced some of our single family, took that money, invested in a small multifamily, a 22 unit. That was my first deal. And kind of like fell in love with the whole idea of commercial real estate. It's more zeros, less headaches. That's how I like to say that. And we started syndicating apartments, and we got to 550 units pretty fast. And then COVID hit us. So we had to survive COVID, but we survived COVID. We sold most of our multifamily assets at the end of 2022. Kind of saw the writing on the wall, told our investors we got to get out of here, and switched over to more triple net type of assets, right? So we have industrial, retail, stuff like that. And then because we were doing multifamily during COVID, that's when we started our own management company. We actually started it 3 weeks before the world exploded. And so everything we've learned on a management side was through blood, sweat, and tears, and trial by fire. So as we kind of graduated out of multifamily, we also started increasing our management practice and bringing in retail centers and office and medical, and that's what we're managing these days.
So your roots pretty much started out in the multifamily space, and you started a property management company in order to become vertically integrated to decrease your costs, keeping everything in-house on the management side, and essentially that transitioned over to non-residential commercial real estate, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
What made you jump from multifamily to commercial assets, primarily retail?
So Multifamily is a great asset class. It absolutely is a great asset class, but it has a certain headache that comes with it, right? And what I tell investors and what I believe in is what I call headaches to returns ratio. And it's the ultimate benchmark for investing. If you're going to invest in anything, headaches to returns ratio should be the main determining factor of everything. Now, the thing about that ratio is that it's both subjective and dynamic. What does that mean? It means that what's a good headaches to returns ratio for me might not be reasonable for you, and might be acceptable on somebody else, right? And then so it's very subjective in terms of what's right for me. It's also dynamic because what I was willing to absorb when I was in my early 30s in terms of headache to get a return, today I'm more inclined to take a little bit less returns if I can get a lot less headache. So the advice I would give a 27-year-old that gets into this world is not the advice I'm going to give a 60-year-old retired physician. Two different things, right? If you are a dentist that makes good money in your practice, you don't want to go to an asset class that's going to create headache and demand time because you make your money over here and you make good money over here, right? This is not a career for you. So go for the thing that is going to generate the least amount of headache, cruise control, mailbox money if possible, versus dealing with the multifamily. Now, multifamily's got some other challenges, especially these days. The rents are going flat almost anywhere across the country. In some places, even negative. The increase in expenses in the last 5 years has been astronomical. Everybody's talking about inflation being high, but inflation, the CPI includes things like cheese. But we don't use cheese in commercial real estate. We use lumber and concrete and metal and paint and sheetrock and labor, right? And all these things have increased tens of percentage points, right? And like 30, 40, even 50% over the last 50 years. So now we're in a position where from 2012 to 2020, things were growing faster than your expenses. But since about 2022, expenses are growing way faster than your rents, which puts you in a negative NOI trajectory. Even if you're perfectly operating, everything is stabilized, you're losing value. And you're losing value in places where you have no control, like insurance, taxes, labor costs, right? We used to be able to hire a make-ready guy for like 10, 12 bucks an hour. Today, you can't even talk to Chick-fil-A's paying 19.
Well, yeah, yeah, definitely.
So, so 12 to 19 is not a 20% increase. Right? So it's a massive increase and it all shrinks your NOI, which automatically shrinks your property value.
Correct.
When you have a triple net lease like you have in retail and industrial and maybe medical, insurance goes up, not a problem. I'm moving it over, transferring that to the tenant. The labor goes up, goes to the tenant. Taxes, tenant. So I tell my clients, like we spell triple net TTR, transfer the risk. So right now, in this time, we feel this is the best opportunity in the market is looking at good retail, good industrial, some good medical that have triple net leases with built-in rent increases. And we see opportunities that like we can find those properties at like 7 to 8% cap rate going in.
And
I
are these
don't
properties in your market? And I'm sorry, I don't even know what market you're in.
Yeah, we're in the Dallas market.
Dallas market. Okay.
And Dallas is one of the hottest, best markets in the country, and we can still find things in the 7 and 8 cap rate. So we haven't seen that since 2009, just for perspective. So why would I go to multifamily, pay lower cap rate, go through all the pain and misery to get to the 7 and 8 cap rate when I can walk in into a 7 and 8 cap rate?
Right.
And it's a very narrow window. I believe we have maybe 12 to 14 months left on that window before that arbitrage opportunity disappears.
Gotcha. And why do you say that? Do you think we're heading into a recession or into more challenging times?
Actually, neither. If you look at, I like to look at what big money is doing. So Blackstone just spent $4 billion buying a retail REIT. So if the big guys are coming into retail and the big guys are looking at industrial for the last few years, right? Then everything is going to start squeezing down the stack, right? So if the big boys are buying the $200 million big retail centers, right, and malls, then the institutional is going to have to buy the smaller ones, and then the private equity are going to buy the smaller ones. They're going to squeeze down the stack until the little guys, the day-to-day investors, if you want to call it, that invest in the $2 to $10 million range, they're going to be squeezed out of the market, and that's where that 7-8% gap is going to shrink down to 5-6% cap rates again.
I see. I see. So essentially, the supply and demand, the supply is not going to be there anymore, which means the demand will increase from there. Gotcha.
Exactly.
Okay, so with your vertical integration going from the multifamily to the non-residential side, and let's take retail for example, let's take industrial for example.
hmm
What were the main challenges in your operations that you had to change in order to get that whole system and SOPs transitioned over smoothly?
Honestly, the only challenge is what do I do with the rest of the time? It's just so much easier to deal with 5, 10 business owners versus 200 people that live in this thing that it's insane, right? So think about it this way. The multifamily world again, great asset class, usually one of the first asset classes that recover from a recession because of the short-term leases, right? So it's got a lot of value and a lot of good opportunities in it. But we are putting our money, let's say you buy a $10 million multifamily property, you're handing it over the keys to the on-site manager. Now, let's put real estate aside for a second. Let's say you and I are going out there and you're ready to retire and say, hey, I got $10 million for you, right? Let's go buy you a business, any industry. I don't care. It's a network of startups or a network of bakeries or whatever, any industry, $10 million business. But you're not going to be operating, right? You're the CEO. You're going to sit back and relax. You're going to hire somebody to run the business. How much are you gonna pay him a salary for the guy that's gonna run you a $10 million business?
Million bucks?
How much do you
500
pay?
grand?
How, how much do you pay an on-site manager for a $10 million property? It's about
No,
150. That's about
yeah.
150 units in Dallas.
I mean, you're probably looking at anywhere from 50 to 100 grand. I don't know Dallas's market, but
Probably 50 to 80.
50 to 80. Okay. That's good.
So we're buying a $10 million property and we're handing over the keys to someone that gets $60,000 a year. How does that make sense?
Doesn't.
Now, these are all hardworking people, don't get me wrong, and they're fantastic, but they're making decisions for your $10 million property. And you wouldn't do that if it was a business. You wouldn't do that in any other circumstances other than multifamily.
Sure.
So you got that challenge going on for multifamily. And the other thing is your tenants, those are the people that are basically paying the rent, they're paying for the mortgage, they're paying all the expenses. Those are the people that if you're looking at C class, they live paycheck to paycheck. They don't have more than maybe 2 to 3 weeks if they lose their job before they don't have money for rent.
Very
These
true.
are the people that you're putting your $10 million investment on. Versus, let's look at retail. I'm putting my money on business owners. I'm putting my money on people that work really, really hard to get there. And if I got a good shopping center, I got national brands in there. I don't mind putting my money on Dunkin' Donuts or on a burger chain or Chick-fil-A, right? I know they got the operation. So there's a there is that factor where, like I said earlier, we transfer the risk, but we also reduce the overall risk of an investment because I'm gambling, right? I'm putting my money on a much more stable tenant base.
Right, right. No, I completely agree with you. That's why I myself, I don't do anything residential anymore. I only do non-residential properties. Um, so with on the management side, right? Now, what do they primarily do? I'm guessing I'm gonna take a stab at it that it's mostly HVAC maintenance, maybe landscaping, maybe roof maintenance, things like that. Yes, or what does your management team typically do for your clients and or your portfolio as well?
So the beautiful part about commercial real estate leases is that normally they are structured in a way that if it's inside the unit, don't talk to me. I don't want to hear about a light that went out. I don't want to hear about a faucet that is dripping. I don't want to hear about a toilet that is clogged, right? Unless it's like a full service office building or a medical building, right? In retail and industrial, we don't deal with anything that is inside the box. So what do we handle? We handle outside landscaping, parking lot, exterior lights, roofs. That's what we mainly take care of. Now, HVAC, you said HVAC, that's one of the most interesting points in most commercial leases. If it's broken but needs to be fixed, the tenant handles that. Only if there's a replacement, sometimes depends on the contract. Sometimes the landlord takes over and takes and do the replacement. But in some contracts that we've seen, not even the landlord is taking care of replacement. It's all the tenant's responsibility. So the limit of what we have to do is a lot smaller than what we would do in residential.
I completely 100% agree. From your experience, what would you say? And now we're just talking about management when it comes to the non-residential commercial side. What separates a good manager from a bad manager?
So I don't think there's bad managers. What I think is there is uneducated managers and inexperienced managers. So if I'm an investor, then when my team does the management, everything we do comes from the perspective of investors. So I don't have one plumber that I call for everything. I got the handyman that handles the little things, right? The simple things. I have the mid-tier plumber that handles the bigger jobs, and I have the expensive plumber that I call when I know it's going to be a big job, expensive job that I need to make sure it happens and getting done the first time. So I do it this way. But if I'm just a third-party manager that don't own properties, that don't understand P&Ls, right? I just call the same plumber every time. I don't care. It's not coming out of my pocket. So it's an inexperienced, but it's also an uneducated person. The third-party managers sometimes they have a lot of experience of how to do things, but they don't understand P&L. And this is one of the biggest challenges I have with third party management is the person that does your P&L, your budget for the year, usually is a field person, and the field people are not accounting people. The number of P&Ls and budgets and Excel files that I've seen that I shred to pieces every single time is insane. It's like, who put this together? Well, it's like people that don't understand how money works and how the financial side of these properties actually operate. Even the department that they call accounting in those third party management is just bookkeepers. So I think that's the main challenges in those property management that landlord will call bad is because they just don't know what how to do the right thing from the investor's perspective. Now, what we also like to do is we also like to look at other things. What does other things look like? Um, we want to make sure that the tenants are sticky, which means retention. We, so how do we do that? We do that by picking the right tenant mix. I'm not going to cannibalize. I've seen multiple. I just was in a showing representing a tenant, and there was literally another tenant doing the same thing in the shopping center, and they said, "Oh yeah, don't worry, they don't have exclusivity." It's like, but you're killing both businesses if you're going to put someone that's going to compete in the same shopping center. So we do the right tenant mix. We also, one of the things that we love to do is every shopping center we manage, we create a dedicated web page for that shopping center. And every tenant gets their own page. Think about it this way. Now, Dunkin' doesn't need us to build them a page. But the mom and pop store, the donut shop, the sandwich shop, the hair salon, they don't. They call an agency, and the agency tells them it's going to cost you $5,000 to create a website. They don't know they can go to GoDaddy and do that for like $20, right? So so our team does the creatives, our team does the work. We put together a website, we put their name, their phone number, their operating hours. They give us pictures. We tell them, you got a promotion, send us an email. We'll post it on for you. It gives them the feeling of when I'm here in this shopping center, I get more for my money than if I go over there and pay 50 cents less per square foot. So that's kind of like it's important to have all that mentality to bring it in. And what I like to say sets us apart, other than being the investor, is that we're also a brokerage, so we give a full service picture. We negotiate the lease renewals. We negotiate the new leases. We pick the tenants for the tenant mix. So we kind of make sure that we maximize the profitability of a property by doing everything and by having the right mindset when we do that.
And I absolutely love that because we've done I wouldn't say done. I wouldn't not similarly. I love the fact that you're keeping an eye out on the type of tenants that are in the center for retail specifically. And I also love the fact that you're actually creating them a website because for a mom and pop tenant, like you mentioned, a lot of them don't know how to do things like this. They might not even be tech savvy. So for you to provide a service like that is absolutely supremely valuable. Now, do you create a website for the entire center, or are you doing one for okay, so you doing one for the entire center, and then each individual tenant has a blog or a page on that
A
website?
page.
Got it.
Correct. They have
Got it.
their individual page. Now, in certain cases, we even went as far as create a little video commercial for them. And again, nothing fancy, right? So I was at one of the stores is like a bakery, and like it's amazing, right? Beautiful colors and everything looks great. So I just took my phone, did like a walk around video, and took some nice pictures and gave it to my team and say, okay, just do something, add some music, add some text that says when they're open, what they do, stuff like that. And we loaded up on YouTube, and they were like ecstatic. So it took let's say 3, 4 hours of my team's time, but for them it was like they spent thousands of dollars to create a commercial. So it's those little things that we can do at not a lot of cost that really means a lot to the tenant. Like I'm pretty sure we're one of the only companies, brokerage companies out there that have tenant that put good reviews for them on Google.
Yeah, that's incredible. And this is kind of the first time I've actually heard of this. I've heard of people doing, websites for their properties and whatnot, but not necessarily putting a page up there for your for your tenant. So you're actually going above and beyond, which is absolutely incredible and adding value to your tenants as well, right?
And we'll put the shopping center website on Google. I have a Google review page, right? And Google page for them. So now it's searchable. Now people can find not only the shopping center, but find the tenants in the shopping center. So we're doing whatever we can to kind of help drive traffic. We encourage them to do like events. So we have a shopping center that sits on 13 acres. So there's a lot of space, parking lot space. There's some grassy area, and we have a fitness center over there. We told them stuff. You want to do an event outside, like a class outside? Go ahead, do it. Right? Advertise that. Advertise each other. Work with each other. We're trying to create something. Like I said, it creates stickiness and it brings value.
And that is the first part of my conversation with Joseph Gozlan. Tune in next week for part two. And that's a wrap. If you've made it this far, that means you've listened to the entire episode, so thank you. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please leave a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening from. And if you've learned something or found it useful, share it with one of your homies. And if you want to get in touch with me, I'm pretty active on IG. My handle is pro_TANH. Reach out, let me know what you liked, what you didn't like, or what you want to hear about in the future. I'm here to tailor this to you. Until next time.